Some legends plan their destiny. Others have destiny thrust upon them. In the case of the professor, it was quite literally both. On the quiet streets of Madrid, amidst the bustling city life and ordinary citizens, a mastermind was cultivating the greatest heist the country had ever seen. This specific individual, Sergio Marquina, would eventually be known throughout Spain and the world simply as the Professor. Picture the modest home where Sergio spent years meticulously planning every detail of the heist. While most criminal masterminds worked with established crews of professional thieves, this one selected individuals with nothing to lose. Outsiders, misfits, and those society had overlooked. The professor noticed something special in each recruit from early on. While most were selected for specific skills within the crew, each one showed exceptional qualities that would ultimately contribute to the complex operation he envisioned. The recruitment process itself was a marvel of psychological engineering. Through careful observation and research, the professor enhanced his understanding of each team member's motivations, traumas, and desires. Perhaps most notably, he implemented the rule of using city names as aliases, allowing no personal details to be shared. This meant that while Tokyo, Berlin, Denver, and the others might appear to be close companions during the heist, in reality, they began as complete strangers to one another, their true identities carefully guarded. As their training progressed in an isolated countryside estate, each member quickly caught the attention of the others. Where Tokyo showed an intuitive understanding of firearms and impulsive decision-making, Berlin displayed natural leadership and psychological manipulation. These complementary qualities set each member on a unique path within the crew, establishing a dynamic that would prove both their greatest strength and most significant vulnerability. The true mark of distinction came when the professor introduced his plan. Not to steal money already printed, but to invade the royal mint of Spain and print their own unmarked bills. Advanced tactics, reserved only for the most daring criminals, were shared with this assembled team. This audacious strategy would prove crucial to the crew's notoriety, allowing them to attempt what others couldn't even imagine, creating perfect, untraceable currency rather than stealing existing marked bills. In a rare display of honesty, the professor awarded each member their city code name, symbols of their new identities that represented their role in the operation. Deep in criminal culture, these aliases served a practical purpose, protecting their true identities while creating a bond among them. For a crew to receive such careful psychological preparation was almost unheard of, indicating just how much the professor had invested in each member's mental readiness. When the heist finally began at the Royal Mint of Spain, Tokyo was there from the very beginning. The first major confrontation between the crew and law enforcement thrust her directly into the chaos of a national crisis. The marble floors of the mint, soon stained with tension and fear, provided a brutal introduction to the reality of their situation. It was here that Tokyo earned her reputation, proving herself capable of intimidating hostages and maintaining control through the most challenging circumstances. Following this baptism by fire, Tokyo received her unofficial designation as the professor's most volatile asset. Despite being merely one member of the crew, her responsibilities often extended far beyond what would normally be expected, essentially placing her as the emotional barometer of the entire operation. This unusual arrangement came about because of who she was before the heist, a woman who had lost everything and had nothing left to lose. The pairing of Tokyo and Rio would prove to be one of the most unexpected developments within the crew. Rio's technical expertise and youthful naivety complemented Tokyo's fierce determination and street smarts. What began as a professional criminal relationship soon developed into genuine affection and mutual trust. In a situation where emotional attachments were expressly forbidden, Tokyo and Rio saw each other as individuals and valued their connection. This treatment had a profound impact on Tokyo's development throughout the heist. Early in the operation, Tokyo approached her role with reckless abandon, eager to prove herself and follow her instincts regardless of the consequences. But as the hours stretched into days and the conflict evolved, so too did her approach. She became less impulsive, developing a style that balanced her natural aggression with practical consideration for the larger plan. This evolution didn't diminish her loyalty to the crew or her determination. Rather, it enhanced her effectiveness as a key member who could make crucial decisions when circumstances demanded. Tokyo's early participation in the heist was marked by several notable confrontations that shaped both her tactical abilities and her most important relationship. During a standoff with the police, she sustained serious injuries and might have compromised the entire operation, if not for the direct intervention of Nairobi. The rescue deepened the trust between them, creating a bond that transcended their criminal collaboration. Another key relationship formed during tense negotiations with Inspector Raquel Murillo, where Tokyo witnessed the professor's genius firsthand through the police radio. Despite their different temperaments, with Tokyo being fiery and reactive while the professor remained calculating and composed, they formed an effective long-distance partnership that would serve the crew through countless challenges. The connection between these two reflected their respective roles, Tokyo as the embodiment of action inside the Mint, and the professor as the mind orchestrating events from outside. As Tokyo's reputation grew throughout the early phases of the heist, she began to be seen not just as an effective criminal but as a symbol of rebellion itself. Other crew members looked to her as an example of unwavering commitment to their cause, someone who maintained her fierce determination while still finding moments of humanity within the strict confines of their criminal operation. The story of Tokyo begins as a tale of loss and desperation, but it quickly becomes something more, a journey of a woman finding her own agency in a world that had taken everything from her. In the conflicts to come, this identity would be tested, challenged, and ultimately forged into something that even the professor could never have anticipated. As the heist intensified within the Royal Mint, Tokyo quickly found herself not just participating in the plan, but also mentoring those around her. Her first test as both fighter and teacher came when Moscow's son Denver struggled with the psychological burden of their action. What began as standard criminal procedure soon became much more significant in Tokyo's story. The operation was already underway when something unexpected happened. Denver developed genuine feelings for one of the hostages, Monica Gastambide. Tokyo was taken aback. No one had anticipated this complication that threatened their carefully constructed plan. Amidst the tension of the heist, Tokyo found herself balancing her criminal duties with guiding this emotional newcomer to their dynamic. When Denver hesitated to maintain the necessary distance from Monica, Tokyo gently reminded him that in their world, attachments were dangerous for everyone involved. This moment established what would become one of the most important elements of Tokyo's character, as she became not just a criminal under the professor's command, but someone with emotional intelligence, who could recognize the human elements that their perfect plan hadn't accounted for. The situation became more complicated when Berlin, second in command, discovered Denver's attachment to Monica. Tokyo worked diligently to protect their fellow crew member, eventually discovering that Berlin had his own vulnerabilities, a terminal illness that affected his judgment and pushed him toward increasingly erratic behavior. This revelation shook Tokyo to her core. The idea that their appointed leader inside the Mint was operating on borrowed time challenged her understanding of the professor's planning. It forced her to confront the uncomfortable truth that even within their meticulously crafted operation, unpredictable human elements could threaten everything they had worked for. Shortly after uncovering Berlin's condition, Tokyo joined Nairobi in a cautious alliance to protect the group from his increasingly unstable leadership. Their objective was unusual for criminals in the middle of a heist, not to secure more money or escape routes, but to ensure the psychological well-being and survival of everyone involved. The strategic importance was clear, as maintaining group cohesion would give them the best chance of completing the heist, according to the professor's design. The internal conflict quickly escalated after Berlin made several questionable decisions that put the crew at risk. In the ensuing power struggle, Tokyo experienced something few would dare: direct confrontation with the operation's designated leader, Berlin attempted to assert total authority over the group, while Tokyo stood her ground, believing she was protecting the professor's plan. In a display of remarkable courage, Tokyo challenged Berlin's leadership openly, even as he threatened severe consequences. This small but significant breach of hierarchy highlighted the evolving dynamics within the crew, transcending the typical boundaries of criminal organizations where switching leadership often meant death. One of Tokyo's most notable experiences during the heist came during what seemed like a routine vault opening. Alongside Denver and Rio, Tokyo inspected the Mint's massive storage facilities, their momentary awe quickly turning to exhilaration as they realized the scale of what they were attempting. Their routine task quickly turned personal when they discovered photographs and mementos from the Mint workers' lives, reminding them that their hostages were real people with families and dreams of their own. Tokyo's quick thinking saved the operation when she instantly recognized that these personal connections could humanize them to their captives, creating dangerous emotional entanglement. She immediately gathered the personal items, instructing Denver and Rio to focus on their task rather than the lives they were disrupting. The moment displayed not only Tokyo's criminal instincts, but also her growing ability to stay focused under emotional pressure. Working with Berlin and Nairobi, Tokyo managed to establish the printing operation that was central to their plan. When the mission was complete for the day, Tokyo made a crucial leadership decision. Impressed by the coordination and efficiency shown by Moscow in setting up the printing presses, she advocated for giving the crew brief rest periods, recognizing that exhaustion would lead to mistakes. This ability to identify human needs within their criminal framework would become a hallmark of Tokyo's evolution throughout the heist. The challenges continued to come, each one testing Tokyo in different ways. When hostage Arturo Roman attempted to organize resistance among the captives, Tokyo's loyalty to the crew was on full display. Without hesitation, she risked escalating the situation to maintain control, further cementing her reputation for unwavering commitment to their cause. This fierce protection of the plan would be tested again during an attempted police breach, where Tokyo demonstrated impressive combat skills against special forces, while working to secure their position within the Mint. Perhaps the most telling insights into Tokyo's character came during moments that required more than just criminal prowess. When Rio was injured during a confrontation with hostages, Tokyo showed her emotional vulnerability for the first time. During their emergency treatment of his wound, Tokyo revealed her attachment to the young hacker, staying behind to care for him while the others continued with the operation. This willingness to prioritize an individual over the plan revealed the moral complexity that guided Tokyo beyond the simple objective of stealing money. Throughout these early stages of the heist, a pattern emerged in Tokyo's approach to her role. Unlike some criminals who viewed their accomplices as disposable assets, Tokyo genuinely cared for her crew members. She balanced following the professor's plan with protecting those around her, earning loyalty through respect rather than intimidation alone. Her fellow thieves knew she wouldn't sacrifice them needlessly, and this knowledge inspired them to follow her lead when circumstances required it. These formative experiences solidified Tokyo's most important relationships. Her complicated respect for Berlin provided crucial tension that kept both of them accountable. Her friendship with Nairobi grew into a powerful alliance of the two strongest women in the crew, and perhaps most significantly, her connection with the professor evolved from distant operative to trusted lieutenant, a bond that would ultimately transcend the heist itself and stretch far into the future of their criminal careers. As the heist continued, Tokyo faced challenges that went beyond typical criminal concerns and tactical maneuvers. The true tests came in moments that forced her to question everything she had been recruited to believe. These pivotal experiences would transform her from a thief who followed the professor's plan into a woman who made difficult moral choices, based on her own developing sense of right and wrong. One such turning point occurred during a hostage crisis within their hostage crisis. While tracking Inspector Murillo's movements through surveillance, the crew discovered her daughter had been brought near the Mint. For Tokyo, this realization struck a personal chord. Her initial reaction was strategic. This could be leveraged as an advantage against the police negotiator. But as she observed the professor's unexpected emotional response to this development, Something shifted in her perspective. Here was proof that their mastermind, the man who had planned everything to the smallest detail, could be affected by human emotion just as they were. When the time came for Tokyo to communicate with the police, she made a decision that would have been unthinkable earlier in the heist. She chose compassion over tactical advantage, warning Raquel about potential danger to her daughter. This moment marked a significant evolution in Tokyo's thinking about loyalty, showing her growing ability to see beyond rigid criminal doctrine. If the encounter with Raquel's daughter planted seeds of moral complexity, the crisis with Denver and Monica would force those questions into full bloom. What began as another hostage situation turned into something more complicated when Tokyo discovered that Monica was pregnant. The revelation that their actions were now affecting an unborn child created an ethical dilemma that their planning had never accounted for. From the start, something felt wrong about how Berlin wanted to handle the situation. His tactics were needlessly harsh, showing complete disregard for the psychological trauma they were inflicting. Tokyo found herself in an impossible position. As a crew member, she was duty-bound to follow their established hierarchy. Yet as a person with her own moral compass, she could see that their treatment of Monica was crossing a line she wasn't willing to accept. The situation deteriorated further when Berlin ordered Denver to execute Monica for attempting to smuggle a cell phone. The moral dilemma tore at Tokyo: follow the established chain of command and be complicit in what she viewed as unnecessary cruelty, or question authority and risk being labeled a traitor herself. In a defining moment, Tokyo supported Denver's decision to fake Monica's execution, hiding her instead. Though it violated their protocol, this choice reflected Tokyo's emerging personal code, one that valued human life over abstract principles of criminal discipline. The aftermath of this decision revealed much about Tokyo's character. Though she had technically undermined Berlin's authority, her motivation wasn't self-serving but stemmed from a genuine belief that some lines shouldn't be crossed even in pursuit of their larger goal. When confronted by Berlin about her increasing insubordination, Tokyo voiced a question that had likely been brewing in her mind: what kind of people will we be when this is over if we lose our humanity along the way? These questions had no easy answer, but they revealed Tokyo's growing awareness of her unusual place in the crew. Not quite the leader, but more than just another member, someone whose emotional intelligence served as a necessary counterbalance to Berlin's cold efficiency and the professor's distant calculation. This introspection didn't prevent Tokyo from continuing to perform effectively. If anything, it made her a more thoughtful and adaptable criminal. When assigned to interrogate the Mint's director about potential secret exits, Tokyo demonstrated her ability to apply psychological pressure without resorting to the physical violence that Berlin favored. These weren't stereotypical intimidation tactics, but carefully calibrated emotional maneuvers that revealed her growing sophistication. The respect Tokyo earned extended beyond her fellow crew member. Her leadership qualities, courage, and occasional flashes of compassion impressed even those who should have viewed her solely as a criminal. Years after the Royal Mint heist, when Tokyo joined the professor for their second operation targeting the Bank of Spain, former hostages would remember her as the most human of their captors, someone who maintained her identity even while wearing the iconic red jumpsuit and Salvador Dali mask. What made Tokyo truly exceptional was her understanding that loyalty must be earned rather than demanded. While recruited as part of a carefully selected team, she recognized that true connection came from shared experience, mutual sacrifice, and choice, not from merely following order. This philosophy shaped her interactions throughout the heist, influencing how she treated both her fellow thieves and the hostages under their control. When faced with the possibility of escape or capture, this belief in chosen loyalty, rather than blind obedience, gave Tokyo the strength to make difficult decisions. The relationships she had formed, particularly with Rio and Nairobi, proved stronger than self-preservation. By choosing to protect her crew over her own safety multiple times, Tokyo demonstrated the ultimate truth of her philosophy, that meaningful bonds are forged through choice and loyalty, not predetermined by plans or hierarchy. Throughout the turbulent days inside the Royal Mint and beyond, it was these relationships that defined Tokyo far more than her status as a thief. They transformed her from a desperate criminal with nothing to lose into a person capable of deep connection, sacrifice, and complex moral reasoning. In a situation where she was meant to be just another interchangeable part of the professor's machine, Tokyo found immeasurable value in the bonds she formed with others, proving that family can be found not just in blood but in the connections we choose to nurture and protect. Sometimes the truth reveals itself in the most devastating ways. For Tokyo, that moment came during what should have been a routine surveillance shift watching the hostages. The crew was on the verge of completing their objective when something unthinkable happened. She received word that the police had identified Ryo's real identity. The young hacker, one of their most vulnerable team members and the person Tokyo had grown closest to, was now exposed. The shock rippled through everyone who witnessed her reaction. The crew members were supposed to maintain emotional distance and focus on the plan, but this revelation made that impossible. Tokyo herself seemed disoriented, repeating that they needed to accelerate their timeline in a voice that betrayed her rising panic. For Tokyo, this wasn't just a security breach, it was personal. Ryo was her partner, someone she had protected throughout the operation. Something was clearly wrong with their carefully constructed anonymity. But what? Medical indicators showed Ryo's vitals elevating dangerously as he processed the news, while the professor attempted to maintain calm from his remote location. When Berlin requested permission to separate Ryo from Tokyo to maintain operational security, the professor immediately supported him. It was a small gesture of protocol, but one that would set in motion a chain of events that would alter the course of Tokyo's involvement in the heist. At the time, she couldn't have known that this simple act of procedure would eventually help shape her reputation as the crew's most unpredictable member. On the professor's command, Berlin confined Ryo to a separate area, claiming it was for his protection while they assessed the security breach. Following her instincts, Tokyo conducted her own investigation with the help of Nairobi. What they found disturbed her. Berlin wasn't just isolating Ryo as a security measure. He was using the situation to reassert his absolute authority over the crew. Desperate to protect Ryo and increasingly suspicious of Berlin's motives, Tokyo attempted to contact the professor directly, breaking one of their fundamental rules. When the attempt failed, she made a decision that would have profound consequences. She staged an internal coup against Berlin's leadership, temporarily taking control of the operation with support from Denver, Moscow, and Nairobi. This extraordinary power struggle revealed Tokyo's complex understanding of leadership. She didn't want control for its own sake, but believed Berlin's deteriorating condition and questionable decisions were endangering everyone. When her attempted coup ultimately failed, due to Helsinki and Oslo's loyalty to Berlin, Tokyo found herself in an impossible situation, bound and facing Berlin's retribution. The moment represented one of the most painful experiences of Tokyo's life. Ejected from the Mint on Berlin's orders, she was cast out from the crew she had risked everything for. With police surrounding the building, Tokyo was immediately captured, her participation in the greatest heist in Spanish history apparently over. Throughout her interrogation by police, Tokyo maintained her loyalty to the crew and the professor, refusing to provide information that would compromise the operation. This quiet defiance, even when facing serious criminal charges, spoke volumes about her character. Despite being abandoned by her crew under Berlin's orders, she protected them without hesitation. The true depth of the professor's planning became apparent in this moment of crisis. What seemed like Tokyo's lowest point, handcuffed in police custody, revealed another layer of his strategy. Using legal maneuvers and carefully planted evidence, the professor managed to force the police to transport Tokyo, creating an opportunity for her extraction. In a display of remarkable coordination, the professor's external team intercepted the police transport, freeing Tokyo from custody. The operation was surgical in its precision, demonstrating that even Tokyo's expulsion had been anticipated as a possibility and prepared for accordingly. This moment of salvation strengthened Tokyo's belief in the professor's abilities and reinforced her commitment to him personally, beyond just the heist itself. In the aftermath of her dramatic rescue, Tokyo worked with the professor to prepare for an even more audacious plan: her return to the Royal Mint. Using motorcycle couriers as unwitting accomplices, Tokyo re-entered the building in one of the most spectacular midpoint reversals of the entire operation. Her return shifted the power dynamic once again, challenging Berlin's authority and restoring balance to the crew's internal politics. The emotional weight of these events hit Tokyo the moment she reunited with her crew. The horror of her expulsion, the brief captivity, the daring rescue, and her triumphant return, all of it crashed down on her at once. In this emotional reunion, particularly with Rio, Tokyo discovered something crucial about herself. Despite her independent nature and survival instincts, she had come to need these people. The bonds formed under extreme pressure had become essential to her identity. As the heist entered its final phase, Tokyo's experiences outside had given her new perspective. She explained to her fellow crew members what she had learned about police tactics and public perception of their actions. The full scope of their impact on Spanish society became clear. They weren't just thieves but had become symbols of resistance against the establishment. Their situation grew even more complex when the professor's identity was nearly compromised due to his developing relationship with Inspector Murillo. Tokyo worked diligently with the crew to adapt their plans, demonstrating a newfound flexibility that contrasted with her earlier impulsiveness. As they fought their way toward the tunnel they had prepared for escape, Tokyo faced the heartbreaking task of saying goodbye to Moscow, who was fatally wounded during a police assault. This loss hit the crew hard, especially Denver, who watched his father die protecting their escape route. In a testament to her growth, Tokyo provided steady emotional support rather than just tactical leadership. She understood that their collective trauma bonded them in ways that transcended their original criminal purpose. The conflict tore at Tokyo's core. These were no longer just accomplices but her family, people she had lived alongside through extraordinary circumstances. Against incredible odds, Tokyo and the remaining crew members reached their escape tunnel and managed to flee the Royal Mint with nearly €1 billion in unmarked bills. As they separated to their predetermined safe locations around the world, they knew that their lives as they had known them were over. The Spanish authorities would hunt them relentlessly, but they had achieved something unprecedented: both the perfect heist and an unbreakable bond with one another. Making a crucial decision that would shape their futures, Tokyo and Rio chose to remain together, establishing themselves on a remote tropical island. This paradise became their refuge as they attempted to build something resembling a normal life amid extraordinary circumstances. Their temporary peace represented Tokyo's first opportunity in years to exist as something other than a criminal or fugitive. For Tokyo, the Royal Mint heist represented the most extraordinary transformation of her life. The woman who entered that building was driven by desperation and a thirst for revenge against the system that had taken everything from her. The woman who emerged was something far more complex, still a rebel but one who had discovered the power of connection, the weight of responsibility, and the possibility of redemption through loyalty to those who had earned it. Yet in that paradise with Rio, something unexpected happened. The quiet routine of safety began to feel like a prison to Tokyo's restless spirit. The peace she had fought so hard to achieve became its own kind of confinement, revealing a fundamental truth about her character: she was a creature of movement and purpose, not meant for the stillness of paradise. When Tokyo eventually left Rio on their island sanctuary, it wasn't from lack of love, but from a need to find herself beyond both her criminal past and this suspended present. This departure set in motion events that would eventually lead to Rio's capture by authorities and the crew's most daring operation yet, the Bank of Spain heist, conceived not primarily for money but to rescue one of their own. The experience transformed Tokyo on a fundamental level. She had begun her criminal career as someone with nothing to lose, defined by what had been taken from her. In participating in the Royal Mint heist, she had evolved into something her recruiter never intended: a woman capable of determining her own path, of choosing loyalty based on personal connection rather than strategic necessity, of finding meaning in protecting those she had come to love. Though their first heist had concluded and the money was secured, Tokyo had won a more personal victory. She had reclaimed her humanity in the most inhuman of circumstances. In doing so, she had helped transform a carefully selected group of criminal specialists into something the professor could never have fully engineered, a family bound by choice rather than necessity. In the chaos of a criminal life, it was relationships that truly defined Tokyo. Though recruited for her skills and desperation, the connections she formed throughout the heist revealed something the professor never fully anticipated: a capacity for deep loyalty, friendship and love that transcended her role as a team member. Central to Tokyo's story was her relationship with the professor. Their bond began as a standard arrangement between mastermind and operative, but quickly evolved into something much more meaningful. The professor's methodical approach to planning contrasted sharply with Tokyo's impulsive nature, creating a complementary dynamic that strengthened the overall operation. Unlike other crew members who followed the professor's instructions without question, Tokyo challenged him when necessary, forcing him to confront the human elements his perfect plan couldn't account for. This assertiveness created a foundation of mutual respect that deepened with each challenge they overcame together. Tokyo admired the professor's tactical brilliance and attention to detail, while he came to value her emotional intelligence and adaptability in unexpected situations. Their trust in each other became so complete that the professor eventually relied on Tokyo as his proxy within the crew, particularly after her return to the Mint following her brief capture. For a man who often felt isolated due to his position as the architect of the heist, Tokyo became more than just an operative. She was a confidant who understood the weight of responsibility he carried. This unconditional acceptance made Tokyo one of the professor's most trusted allies during both heists. A person who stood by him when others questioned his methods. Years later, during the Bank of Spain operation, Tokyo would remain the emotional cornerstone of the professor's team. The one who best understood his motives, went beyond money to something more personal, a desire to complete the vision his father had begun. If her relationship with the professor was built on mutual respect, Tokyo's connection with Rio was perhaps even more transformative for both of them. Their first interactions inside the Mint established what would become one of Tokyo's most complex relationships. The young, technically brilliant hacker initially seemed an unlikely match for the battle-hardened Tokyo. Yet their differences created a powerful attraction. What began as physical attraction gradually evolved into something deeper. Tokyo watched Rio struggle with the psychological burdens of their criminal actions, his more sensitive nature both frustrating and endearing to her. She offered him insights not just about survival but about finding strength in vulnerability, sharing lessons she had learned through hard experiences. Their relationship became more balanced over time, with each protecting the other in different ways. Rio providing Tokyo with moments of genuine tenderness amid the chaos, while she offered him the fierce protection of someone accustomed to fighting for survival. The true depth of their connection would be revealed after the Mint heist, during their attempt at building a life together away from crime. The inevitable friction between Tokyo's restless nature and Rio's desire for peaceful stability created a pattern that would define their relationship. Periods of intense connection interrupted by Tokyo's need for freedom. When this pattern ultimately led to Rio's capture by authorities, Tokyo's guilt and determination to save him became the emotional engine driving the entire Bank of Spain operation. Among her fellow crew members, none was closer to Tokyo than Nairobi. Together they formed an alliance within the larger group that contributed immeasurably to the heist's success. From challenging Berlin's leadership to supporting each other through moments of crisis, Tokyo and Nairobi developed a shorthand communication and implicit trust that made them formidable partners. Their camaraderie provided both with necessary moments of strength amid the darkness of their situation. Whether supporting each other against Berlin's more extreme tendencies, or celebrating small victories in their printing operation, the friendship between these two powerful women created an essential emotional counterbalance to the predominantly male hierarchy of the crew. The tragedy of Moscow's death during their escape from the Mint created another significant bond in Tokyo's life. Her relationship with Denver evolved from initial weariness to genuine familial affection. After losing his father during the heist, Denver found in Tokyo someone who understood the complex grief of losing family. She in turn saw in him echoes of her own passionate nature tempered by Moscow's influence. Tokyo's ability to form meaningful bonds extended to other crew members as well. Her relationship with Helsinki and Oslo demonstrated her growing appreciation for different kinds of strength, while her complicated dynamic with Berlin, alternating between open conflict and reluctant respect, showcased her ability to work effectively even with those whose methods she questioned. As their first heist concluded and the survivors scattered across the globe, Tokyo maintained these connections despite the physical distance between them. When circumstances eventually reunited the crew for the Bank of Spain operation, these established relationships provided the foundation for their continued collaboration. What made Tokyo truly exceptional was her understanding that family transcended conventional definition. While others might have seen their crew simply as temporary criminal accomplices, she recognized the profound bonds created through shared danger and mutual dependence. This philosophy shaped her actions throughout both heists, influencing how she treated her fellow thieves even in moments of internal conflict. When faced with the horror of potential capture or death, this belief in chosen family rather than circumstantial alliance gave Tokyo the strength to make tremendous sacrifices. The relationship she had formed proved stronger than self-preservation, allowing her to act with remarkable courage even in the most desperate situations. Throughout the turbulent years spanning both heists, it was these relationships that defined Tokyo far more than her criminal skills. They transformed her from a lone survivor running from her past into a person capable of profound connection, sacrifice, and love. In a world where she had been reduced to a fugitive, Tokyo found immeasurable value in the bonds she formed with others, proving that family can be found not just in normal circumstances but in the midst of extraordinary ones. What began as a perfectly orchestrated heist eventually became something more, a journey of transformation for everyone involved, but perhaps most dramatically for Tokyo herself. The woman who entered the Royal Mint was defined by her losses. The woman who emerged from the Bank of Spain years later was defined by what she had found: purpose, family, and a code of loyalty that transcended the original criminal motivation. In a world that had labeled her simply as robber and murderer, Tokyo reclaimed her humanity through the connections she formed and the choices she made under extraordinary pressure. Her story stands as testament to the idea that even in the midst of chaos, it is our relationships that define us, not the masks we wear or the roles assigned to us, but the bonds we choose to honor even when everything else is at stake. For Tokyo, the most valuable thing stolen during their heists wasn't the money at all, but something far more precious: the freedom to define herself on her own terms and the family she found along the way. Some legends end while others evolve. In the case of Tokyo and the Professor's crew, their story became something greater than a mere heist. It became a modern myth about redefining freedom and finding connection in the most unlikely circumstance. The real treasure, as Tokyo herself might say, wasn't in the vaults they emptied but in the bonds they formed while doing so. As the Professor once told them during those early days of training, "We might enter as strangers, but we'll come out as something else entirely." For Tokyo, those words proved more prophetic than anyone could have imagined. The heist didn't just change their financial situation, it rewrote who they were at their core. And that transformation, unlike the money they stole, was something that could never be taken away from them. In the story of the greatest heist in history, perhaps the most perfect theft of all was how they stole back their own humanity in a world determined to reduce them to nothing but criminal. That, more than any amount of euros, was the true masterstroke of the Professor's plan, and Tokyo's greatest legacy.